Welcome back. We're at the Fresno Diocesan Congress here in the Visalia Convention Center, and I'm sitting with Stephen Valgos. He's a Catholic school teacher, and he holds a Master in Catechetical Certificate from his home diocese in Monterey, California, now a resident of Turlock. Is that right?
That's true.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it. Being up in the Valley, what do you see that the church in the Central Valley is different than maybe the rest of the country, the rest of the state even?
That's a great question. I think the youth in the Valley, first of all, there's a ton of them. Like when I do confirmation retreats, we're talking about a parish that has 150 students in their confirmation programs, and so you end up with these massive numbers, and so it becomes a challenge to engage all of them. And oftentimes, in the Valley especially, I don't find the groups as large on the coast. We end up with smaller, much more manageable groups, 40, 50 students. But there are so many parents and so much emphasis on belonging to church and participating in church that you just find the numbers skyrocket, and it creates a challenge for ministering to them. And I think probably from the church's perspectives that ask me to come in and work with their youth is there's a large age range as well. So in any given confirmation session, for example, you'll have some who are junior high, 7th and 8th grade, then all the way up to high school, and varying levels of passion, of commitment, of engagement, of participation in church and things like that. And so I think catechetically talking, where do you start? Where is our starting point for what they're bringing forward? And so I think I'm sure not just in the Valley, but across the board, you've got some who are infants, quite infants in their faith, in their knowledge of the faith, the language of faith. They may or may not even attend church regularly. They're there to receive sacraments, but they may not be actively participating in their faith. On the opposite side of the spectrum, but also in the same room, maybe at the same table, is you've got parents and kids who are maybe in Catholic schools, who are actively engaged, who are participating. And so as a speaker, I'm boring one end, and confusing the other. And so there's always a challenge of how do I speak to them in a way that is engaging and uplifting and life-giving at all these different levels.
Yeah. You said keeping them active, right? Maybe they're not actively engaged. And working with confirmation as do you see that as a challenge? And what do we need to do to not make them just attend Mass, attend a now and then retreat, attend youth group? What's the difference from attending and being active?
Well, I think overwhelmingly, the message I get from kids is, this is boring. It sounds horrible to say, but it just seems that there isn't enough being done for youth that speaks to their heart, that is moving, that is engaging. There isn't a staff that is entirely dedicated to pastoring youth. You've got sacramental preparation. There are youth programs, but there really isn't, in my opinion, enough or a consistent commitment. And I mean dollars-wise, hiring staff to make sure that when they show up, it is well planned, well prepared, well rehearsed. It isn't being thrown together at the last minute. This is what they do. They do youth. This isn't an adult church who does something for the youth. This is a whole church committed to engaging and making it uplifting and life-giving, so where they would say, I would rather go to my youth night than anywhere else. I go to church because I feel at home there, I feel loved there, I feel engaged there, I'm built up there, and there's a serious priority that is given to the life or the community of the church. Our youth, our young people, they're divided. They've got all kinds of academic activities, academic strains. School life is a huge burden and getting more difficult. Their athletic life, their social life, they are truly engaged in so many things. And so church, I think, too often becomes the check in the box. Yeah, okay, I got that done. I have to go to church on Sunday. Okay, hopefully it's only an hour. Maybe it's not going to be too painful. We check the box, we get it done. Youth night, because I want that, and I want to be involved in that. I'm supposed to be involved in that. Somehow there's a guilt association. I should do that. But what's the minimum that I have to do? There's no depth. It's a surface level attendance issue. And I think that is best remedied when a lot of our church's energy is focused on them. I don't think we as a church can just assume that young people will always stay in the faith or come back to the faith, that they will naturally stay here or come back. And I think it needs to be addressed. It has to be a real commitment by our local communities to emphasize the young people and engaging them.
What do you see? And you're like you mentioned, it's the staff. Maybe some parishes, some dioceses don't have a staff dedicated to purely administering to the youth. And I think that, like Pope Francis has said many times, the introduction to the faith happens at home.
Sure.
Do you feel something needs to be done at home? Maybe the communication with the parents or simply what the children are observing.
Now you're talking my language. Okay, so that's fantastic. I actually was in charge of the confirmation program in Monterey, and there was no such thing as youth confirmation without parent participation. So every single time we got together, we always gathered with parents and sponsors. So first year confirmation, the parents attended. It was catechesis for them as well. You know, it sounds weird to say, but the parents actually learned far more than the kids. They came back and said, thank you so much. I don't remember hearing it this way when I was a kid. Well, of course not, you were a kid. Now that you're an adult, you hear the same thing in a whole new and fresh way. So the amazing thing was, first year parents always attended with their children. The second year sponsors attended with their candidate. And then I always said, if you're a second year parents, you want to keep coming, continue to come. Awesome. If you are a first year and your candidate wants to come, make sure you do that. It was an amazing gathering of participation with parents, sponsors, and the youth. The amazing thing was, the parents who had not been confirmed would always ask me, this has been so great, can I actually get confirmed with my child? And so the San Carlos Cathedral in Monterey said absolutely. So their youth confirmation program became for those parents who had not yet received adult confirmation or confirmation at all. It was a chance for them to complete their baptismal graces. So it was an amazing experience.
Amazing,
but
yeah.
that's my thing is, there's no such thing as showing up for an hour to listen to Steve or somebody else talk about the faith and how great it is. If you're going home and you're not attending Mass on Sunday, you're not saying prayers at night, there is no ongoing conversation about holiness and growth in holiness and commitment to Christ and prayer time. At the end of the day, the child will learn far more from their parents and their lack of participation than from anybody else who says, yeah, this is great. And so I think there needs to be much more overlap between and parental involvement. At the risk of talking way too much, that was a big, when I was at the Franciscan School of Theology at Berkeley, I got my master's at the Franciscan School of Theology at Berkeley, and they invited me to go to Arizona, where there was a Franciscan Renewal Center, who was going from being just a renewal center to an actual full-on parish. And they were expected to, do all of the sacramental preparation that they hadn't had to do before. And that was a big issue for them, is they wanted to teach the adults. They said, look, if a child wants to receive their sacraments, we shouldn't be the one teaching them. Their parents should be teaching them. So let's hold sacramental preparation for the parents, maybe a reminder of their sacraments, a reminder of what they had already learned as kids. Let's refresh their memory, help them to grow in an understanding of their faith, so that then they can go and teach their children. So the children were taught not at the parish, but by the parents who attended the parish when they went home to teach their kids. I think it's a fantastic vision for youth catechesis. It would change our whole model. There's no such thing as dropping your kids off at the parish school or the parish church and saying, I'll be back in an hour. In fact, what I would like to see is the reverse. The parents attend, they learn and grow in their faith, they go home and share it with their kids. Bring the kids back in for the conversation, for the interview, for the discussion of what they've learned from their parent. Because now the parent becomes a role model and mentor and the rightful catechist of that child. We say it all the time, we say it all, especially in Catholic education, that the parent is the number one educator. It's their job. They're the primary educator in faith. We say those things as a church, but we're not creating a structure that requires it. And so we are very quick to step in and teach children when we say it's the parents who should be teaching them. And so I think what we need to do is empower parents, equip parents, give them the materials, the support for them to be the experts and role models in their faith.
Absolutely. Now let's take it beyond confirmation.
Sure.
They get baptized, first communion, reconciliation, confirmed, and many times that's where they drop.
Sure.
Right? There's a lot of programs that, if they have programs for the youth up to that point,
Yeah.
they say they don't come to the church until they need to get married.
Sure.
And maybe even then some people realize they have to get confirmed or have to do the rest of the sacraments before.
Yeah.
What needs to be done there to keep it going, that excitement going? Because I know in plenty of parishes that have those up to confirmation hot and ready to go,
Sure.
and then you just miss everybody until the married couples.
You know, that goes, I think, back to what I was saying before. I think there is an emphasis on youth, and there needs to be an emphasis on youth. But at the same time, if we reverse this model and say emphasis on youth through parents, emphasis on youth through young adults. So now all of a sudden it changes the way we approach it. And I think what we have, because my bias, I was the director of adult education and evangelization at St. Stanislaus Parish in Modesto, which is a mouthful, first of all. But everybody said, well, what is that? Is that RCIA? I said, no, it's adult education for members in the parish. The priest had, Father Bill McDonald had an amazing vision that we would actually do catechesis for people in the pews. It's not RCIA, it's not youth catechesis, it's ongoing formation after confirmation, where it was amazing for 2 years, and it's when I got my master's. For 2 years, I held Bible studies and catechism studies and apologetic sessions and gave faith night lectures. It was amazing. Other people had no idea that parishes were even doing anything like this. And you go, this is exactly what we should be doing. Provide beyond the Mass is there, we're there to worship and give thanks to God. Thanksgiving, wonderful. We get a homily. We learn a little bit, the application of the scripture to our life. But there's a lot of gaps that our young adults and adults have that is not being addressed. And I think if we were to do if parishes would commit a degree, I know it comes down to money, I get it, but if they were willing to commit resources, even teaming up as parishes to commit resources to hire a director of adult education and evangelization for their parish to offer ongoing catechesis, adult formation, counseling, parents, where do we go as parents to learn how to raise our children in the faith? So I think there would be great opportunities for things like that. The sad thing is, after those 2 years, Father Bill was no longer at St. Stan's, and the bookkeeper came to me and said, do you have other plans? And that's when I went back to Catholic high school education. And unfortunately, I don't think that there is not enough money being set aside to address what I was just talking about. And that's what I would consider this whole new evangelization. Since then, I thought, I want to keep doing this. Adults love this. We've got people who have been a Catholic their whole life who are attending faith nights because they are on fire and they love it and they want more, and they're saying, hey, how do I get this? What do I do? And the answer is, unfortunately, well, go to your parish and see what they offer. What do they offer? Well, RCIA, there's youth. You can be a youth catechist, you can be an RCIA sponsor, but there's really not this sort of ongoing commitment to the everyday Catholic in the pews.
To educate and to
starving.
expose them.
And they want what's true. They want to know, what does the church teach about these things? And I don't think that we are doing a good enough job of addressing those type of ongoing, regular. I know that there's a person in my parish. So after that, I thought, I want to keep doing this. And so, although I was teaching, I started a website, CatholicEvangelist.com, and people will say, evangelist, Catholic, those two, those even go together. I even had a priest one time tell me that I need to change my name because Catholic Evangelist is going to turn people off. This isn't a word that Catholics use. This is a word that Protestants use. I said, wait a second. For 2,000 years, we've been evangelizing. That's what we do. That's what Jesus said. Every one of us to go out and share the love that we have found being a disciple of Jesus Christ. How can we not use this word? And so, at any rate, I left it. It's still Catholic Evangelist. And so now, although I teach, my day job is teaching, at every opportunity I do things like this, conferences and retreats, adult topics. And although I still do youth, and more of high school as a teacher, more and more I'm trying to go toward adult education. So it's really
which is, like you said, needed, and
it's
exciting when they're exposed to it.
And challenging parents to be parents who raise their children in the faith. And so, so then the church has amazing resources for parents in that regard. They're not accessing it, or they don't know how. And so it's been
And
fun.
we can visit CatholicEvangelist.com for
That's right.
for more material, more information.
CatholicEvangelist.com.
Thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's all for this closer look on youth engagement in the church. We want to give a special thanks to the Diocese of Fresno's Office of Ministries for their support for this program, and the Visalia Convention Center for welcoming us here with open arms. From the floor of Fresno's Diocesan Congress, I'm Edgar Guzman. Thank you for joining us.